Hello, guys. Welcome back to a double whammy of a what if today. Didn't think I'd be doing this. So, hey, and welcome back to What If Deku Was a Spartan. Last I left off, Deku just got asked by a member of his, well, class that he looks over with being Uraraka or Chaco, saying, are you a Spartan? And is that true? Deku just, well, not just Deku just yet. Sorry. A quick recap. Shigaraki got shot both times, well, twice, both in the leg, once in the legs, and once in the arms. So he's relatively pissed. Now there's the 2 weeks of leave while Aizawa and that figure out what happened and try to get some information out of the Office of Naval Intelligence, aka ONI. Now, Deku got suspended along with Uraraka, so they're both staying at their home. Uraraka's not really throwing the book at Deku. She just says, well, to him constantly that it wasn't his fault. He wasn't to know that thing was there, so only can't really have a go at you. As he turns around and just says, no, they can. Because technically they're not supposed to know that we are both Spartans. As Uraraka will just say, just turns around and says, well, if they know that you're a Spartan, I will just tell them as well that he's not the only Spartan there. I'm also a Spartan. And we go by the two names of, well, two names as Titan and Wraith. Now, if you two in, no, hang on a minute. If you guys write down in the comments what name, what code name they should be as a team, like the Wraith Titans or the Wraith Titan, or just Titan and Wraith. By all means, put that down in the comments. I will then add that in. But otherwise, anything else that happens just happens. Anyway, as she eventually goes to the phone and gets the Office of Naval Intelligence on the line, as she gets put straight through to Dr. Halsey. She basically tells Halsey her idea, and Halsey gives the green light, as to say, you have my permission to say. As she turns to Deku, gives him a thumbs up, and yeah, they now have a plan. And while Uraraka was actually on the phone, she actually also asked Halsey, would it be best if we now just wear our not our ODSD armor, our Spartan armor? Halsey says, you might as well, because people now know that one of you's a Spartan. So might as well just show that there's two Spartans. And she then asks Uraraka to put Izuku Midoriya on the line. As she taps him on the head, saying, you're needed. as he then gets on the comms, or gets on the horn to Dr. Halsey, as Dr. Halsey says, right, I know what you did in the USJ attack, and I know you and Uraraka, well, you and Rafe took out the insurrection forward operating post or area. And I also heard that you bumped into the three heroes wearing what looks like cat outfits. They are called the Wild Wild Pussycats. And just to let you know, whenever you guys go for a training camp or something, they're most probably the people you're going to see. So they may be a bit scared of you when they see you. So keep your helmets on when you're near them. As they both agree, and yeah, Dr. Halsey just says, take care, the insurrection may have noticed that they lost contact with the group here on Earth. So expect any more contact from the insurrection forces. As Deku then says, is our objective to still look after Momo Yadarozu? As she says, no. Whenever you get the chance, whenever you are off duty, go around and find any. Hang on a minute, guys, I'll be back. And I am back, sorry about that. Anyway, as I was saying, Halsey said, whenever you are off duty, go and find any source of the local insurrection forces to see if anybody survived. As the weeks go on, they do just that, finding nothing, as it looks like no other person survived the attack that they did. So they go back, and be aware that took one whole week to do. So yeah, they were certain. As the next week goes along, the week before they go back, they were walking around, keeping an eye on things, went shopping for a little bit with, well, Izuku Midoriya and Uraraka went shopping for a bit, and then came to a construction area where two individuals were looking at designs as Uraraka recognized them. As she kept her head down, as they decided to walk up towards them to see if they were alright. As they turn around, and the gentleman says, no, we're alright. We're just having problems with all the construction at the minute due to money restraints or constraints, and us trying to find our daughter. She vanished when she was 5, and nobody's been able to find her for 15 years. My wife still wants to search for her, as do I, but with the money constraints at the minute, we wouldn't even be able to find a private investigator or even hire them. As Uraraka looks up and says, we're sorry to hear that, as the woman looks into her eyes and says, wait a minute. Your eyes and hair look very similar to my daughter. Have we met? As Uraraka says, no ma'am, we have not. And she says, my name is something something. As she says, your name's Uraraka Ochako, isn't it? As Uraraka shakes her head saying, no, it's not. As, well, the lady still prods, saying, I know it's you because I can tell. Only my daughter has those certain the eyes like you. And I've seen other kids around here with brown hair, but she's always had her hair like that. As Uraraka's father finally clicks, twigs it in his head, and also starts recognizing that it's Ochako. As he says, yeah, you've got the same hair colour as our daughter. As eventually Deku says it's time for us to go. We're going making up a false story saying we're going to be late for a meeting. As Ochako says, oh Christ, I forgot. They say sorry, but we must go. As before they could say anything, Deku and Uraraka quickly skedaddle. As they say, well, as Uraraka's mum says, that was our daughter. We just found her. As the man next to her says, yeah, but what happened to her? Did you see the scars? As the woman nods, saying yes, that gentleman had the same amount of scars as well, going up his arm, and onto his neck, the same as her. As they quickly get out and head home. As they bump into a lady with green hair and, well, two people with green hair. We already know one of them. Well, we actually all know both of them because I just brought them up. Well, I brought one of them up. As the first woman says, Azumi, calm down. He most probably wasn't your brother anyway. He most probably just had the same green hair and green eyes. As much as I wish your brother was alive, your father would still call him a worthless piece of garbage. As Azumi says, I don't care what father thinks. I know he's my brother. After what he did, I am determined to find out what truly happened to him. He doesn't act like the brother I vaguely remember. As Inko says, why don't you just accept the fact that he perhaps is dead? As much as I want him to be alive, it's been 15 years. You're 15 yourself. Focus on being a hero first. Then most probably when you become either number one or number two hero, you can then spend as much time as you want searching for him. As Uraraka and Deku walk past, as Inko turns around, saying, wait, it can't be possible. As Deku and Uraraka just open a gate and walk through. As she then says, Izuku? As Deku opens the gate again, walks out, saying, "Hello, you must be Mrs. Midoriya, right?" And she says, "That's me, but you already know that." As Deku says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't believe we've truly met." As Inko says, "It's me, your mother." As Deku shakes his head, saying, "Sorry, no recollection." As Azumi says, "Stop lying. I know it's you. For starters, I did something illegal in school. I snuck into the teacher's lounge and found your name. And I found this picture." As Izumi pulls out a picture from her pocket, saying, "I know damn well you remember me due to this image alone. That's me and you when we were kids. Well, when I was a toddler and you were a kid. You were virtually glued to me until our parents decided to go for a little trip and leave me with a babysitter. So stop lying to yourself and come home." As Azumi starts tearing up, and she says, "All I want is my brother back. I don't care if you're this such and such a thing. You're still my brother. And all I want is to have him back in my life again." Even even Inko nods her head in agreement and says, "Look, all we want is you back. We don't care if this so-called Naval Office of Naval Intelligence owns you now. You're still my son, and you can't deny that." Sorry if I'm going into a bit of an accent. I don't know why. I think I'm going slightly Irish. God damn it. Doesn't help when I've got an Irish friend. Damn you, koala. Bloody hell. Anyway. Eventually, after a few hours of them talking and begging him to come back, Uraraka walks back out with a somewhat of a agitated look. And she says, "I'm sorry, you two, but he has no, as he's most probably told you, he has no recollection of you two. So I would prefer it if you left us both alone. We're teachers at UA. And you two coming up to us and starting to cause a bit of a ruckus around here. So we'd like you two to please now go home. And don't start bothering us again. We're teachers of UA. What we say and do in UA is what we say and do. Even out here, we are still teachers. Yes, this is out in public and we're not technically working at UA for a while. We are still perfectly able to be teachers. Now, you don't mind. Leave us alone. Leave us alone." And she grabs Zukamidori's hand and drags him off. As he just simply says, "I can walk on my own." Not when you're getting annoyed by those two. As she drags him inside, as he shuts the door. Eventually he pulls his arm away from her, saying, "What the hell was that for? I could have got I could have had those two perfectly in hand and told them some complete BS and gotten away from us. And you coming along and doing that would have has now just drawn a lot more suspicion towards both of us. I do remember my sister, and I do remember my mother. But with us both being Spartans, I can't help going into an accent. Fuck. As he just says, with us two being Spartans, it's hard for us both to be away from our family that we've only known for 5 years. But as you say, this is the real world. We have to move on. This is my way of moving on, to try and get them out of my life. So when things go bad, and we most probably go to a full-out war with the insurrection, and if I die, I will not have them mourning my death or blaming Oni. Oni gave us both a good purpose in life. Let's not get our family members mixed up in any of it. Do you hear me, Uraraka? Or do you hear me, Rafe? Try not to let your personal emotions to your family cloud your judgment. When we get called into a mission, I do not want to be watching my ass and your own. Us two are a perfect duo in a team, but when that duo is compromised due to emotions, we'll be caught out in the open. You have to understand this fact, and very well. We've been through this with training, with everybody. All of our instructors taught us to hide our emotions. Just like the fight with that big bird thing. We both saw how strong that thing was, along with Noble Team. That thing was strong enough to launch a Spartan off of his own feet. Mind you, it was me who got knocked onto his ass into a flight of stairs, which, by the way, still freaking hurts. So I'm going to have to ask Oni if they can put some extra padding on the spine area. But it doesn't mean that your emotions can cloud your own judgment. I was perfectly capable of getting them away. No matter what happens, don't let your emotions cloud your judgment. Do you understand, Uraraka? As Uraraka just nods and says sorry, but after seeing my own parents, do you want to know how hard it was for me not just to hug them both and say, I'm sorry, Mum, I'm sorry, Dad? That I suddenly vanished out of my bedroom one day. And nobody knows what happened to me. Think of how terrifying and shocking it was to them. To see their only child vanish into thin air. Now, you're lucky you have a sister. You have someone to keep your mother going. My parents didn't. They didn't have anyone to keep them going apart from themselves. As Uraraka goes on a bit of a rant and says, I'm going to go and get a shower. Make something for both of us, then you go get yours. You know what, scratch that, make yourself something to eat. I'm getting a shower, I'm going straight to bed. As it turns out to be nearly 7 o'clock at night. As Deku makes himself something to eat, as he gets a phone call from UA. As Deku answers it, he hears a Principal Nezu on the other end saying, Izuku Midoriya? As he says yes. Can you, as Principal Nezu just says, can you and Miss Ochako please report to my office after the week, at the beginning of next week? We have a lot of things to discuss, because the report came back to me after the incident that there was people known as Spartans and you turned out to be one of them. So I want to know the full truth, but I want to hear it in person. Do I make myself clear? Zuko just answers saying, yes sir, you make yourself clear. As he says, good, because there's going to be a few other people there with us. Dr. Halsey for one, All Might for another, Present Mike, the number two hero Endeavor, and basically others. As he says, okay. As the week goes past, entering the very next week, or the beginning of next week, as Deku and Uraraka put their armor on, because they had the green light for them to wear their armor again, as Deku just says, damn, it feels nice to still have this armor on. I don't feel like I'm letting my bits breeze in the wind. As Uraraka just says, how do you think I feel? You got one piece, you got one bit that hangs in the wind. I got two bits that hangs in the wind. As Deku just looks over to her and says, really? As Uraraka says, what? As he just, in the end, puts two fingers next to his eyes as he rubs them going down to his nose, saying, I did not particularly want to hear that, Rafe. As she says, I didn't particularly want to hear that your bits were dangling in the wind either, Titan. As they both sort of snigger and laugh, and says, right, let's get going. As they head to UA, fully armoured. As early in the morning as they possibly could, as Principal Nezu turns up early to open. As he sees two heavily armoured individuals standing at the gate. And by the way, the armour in the middle is Deku with the armour on the right side. Just ignore that picture on the right and focus on the gun and the chain fed. Well, just focus on the barrel and the gun. Ignore the armour. And pretend that that's attached to the centre. Anyway, back to the story. As Nezu sees that the two people are standing there, he says, who are you? As Deku takes off his helmet, saying, it's me, Principal Nezu. Me and my friend Rafe here. As Rafe sort of waves, saying hello, as they walk in with Nezu. As they both go to his office, as Endeavor, All Might, Present Mike, and a few Others turn up to have a huge board meeting as the Spartans explain who they are and why they were here. Eventually, I forgot to say this, Dr. Halsey's there as well. Failed to mention that. As Dr. Halsey is actually the one explaining this. Sorry, I meant to say that also. As Dr. Halsey explains that these two are called Titan and Wraith. Titan is the tall one with all the armor, and Wraith is the one with the ODSD armor. They're both high-leveled Spartans, and not only that, they are hyper-lethal Vector. But they are also two of the most well-qualified hunters as well. They are also known as the Headhunters, Titan and Wraith. As everybody sort of is very shocked and surprised, Endeavor doesn't really care. President Mike's nigh on shitting himself. As Principal Nezu has actually heard of the Headhunters, and even when he's drinking his tea, his hand holding his tea is shaking like an absolute metric ton, spilling it. As everybody in the room says, hyper-lethal vectors. And they're both headhunters. Dr. Halsey just nods her head, saying yes. And can you two please remove your helmets to show them who you really are? As they both remove their helmets, revealing deku, Izuku Midoriya, which All Might's jaw just drops, and Uraraka Ochako removes hers. Then even Aizawa's jaw drops to the floor. Hang on a minute, I'll be back. I'm back, I've got 5 minutes before I have to go somewhere. As Aizawa's jaw drops to the floor, as everybody realises that these two supposed ODSD members were actually two headhunters with a hyper-lethal vector between both of them. And everybody knows of one person who had hyper-lethal vector. As a matter of fact, we all do. Master Chief. As everybody asks them questions, saying, how the hell did you two become Spartans? As Dr. Halsey puts her hand up, saying that is classified beyond all records, as even I do not have the full details, and I am the one who came up with the Spartan 2 program. Oni fully protects its secrets, and if an investigation goes into Oni, they will only find deceit, lies, and everything else. Only the Council knows the truth. I'm talking about the High Council. As everybody gets frustrated, as All Might says, Principal Nezu, do you want me to bring in some other guests? As Halsey quickly suggests to Izuku and Uraraka to put their helmets back on. As Principal Nezu says yes, as four people walk. Well, not four, 5 people walk in. Azumi and Inko Midoriya, along with Hisashi and the Urarakas. As they say, we do not know why we were brought here today, but I have something to guess that's with those two at the back there. As the Midoriyas point to the back room that the Spartans are. And this is where I'm ending it. See you guys. Just to let you guys know that there's someone downstairs at the minute. As I left off, the Midoriyas pointed towards Deku and Uraraka at the back. And because they have their helmets on, nobody can really see their faces. But Azumi immediately picked out Izuku due to the armor. Because, yeah, look at him, he's blue and green, so the two colours you can somewhat easily find if you're looking for them, right? But because they're in the back of the room, it's a little bit more darker, so Ochako is actually a lot more concealed. As things go on, Hisashi Midoriya says, "So you brought us all out here to look at what these so-called as he says, whatever the fuck you call these guys. What, Spartans or your own private puppet army?" As Chaco actually looks over to Izuku and looks down as she can physically see behind his back that Izuku's hand both of his hands are clenched into a fist. As she walks over and slides her hand onto his right hand, slips her hand onto his right hand and goes into his comlink, or activates her comlink to his, saying, "Relax. Don't focus on him." As this is actually visibly seen from All Might, Aizawa, and the others. Obviously, Dr. Halsey knows what he feels towards his father after what he put Deku through. As we quickly go back to a flashback of Deku when he was younger and when Azumi was born. This is all what Deku told Dr. Halsey one time when he was in a psychiatric area to condition his mind. But the one thing that they could never get rid of was the images of his sister and the brutality his father put him through. And if you're wondering why I'm whispering, I just said it. There's somebody downstairs and I don't want her to come up here. As he says, "I don't want to see anybody suffer like I did from my father. My sister was lucky that she actually found out that she had a quirk early on due to her breathing fire when she was around about a few weeks old, and she was already starting to open her eyes. So during those first few weeks, I was always glued to her because I didn't want my father to go through the hellish things, do the hellish things he did to me, even before I got told I didn't have a quirk. And I refused to let my old man do that to her, so I always stuck with her. As Zuka continues explaining. He also explains what his father did to him. He was actually once sent to the hospital with both of his arms broken, along with both of his legs, and his chest being partially caved in, as nobody could truly tell it was Hisashi Midoriya who did this to his own son. No matter what Deku tried to do, nobody really accepted it because they thought it was just, well, not actually thought. Hisashi Midoriya just told everybody he tells lies all the time. He just fell down the stairs, and unfortunately, a lot of things fell on top of him that nearly crushed him. Acting as a protective father who's concerned for his own son, which he never was. As the flashback ends with Deku getting picked up by an Oni intelligence officer, and that's when he also first met Uraraka, as she was scared as she didn't know where she was, along with Deku, as they both started to immediately form a very strong bond that was virtually unbreakable, even to Oni, which they found very surprising. The only other two that did this was Noble 1 and Noble 2, aka Kat and Carter. And yeah, back to the present day. Zuko does ease up his hand and allows Uraraka to slip her own fingers in between as she holds his hand behind his own. But she makes it look like she's trying to get him to calm down about something. Azumi sort of sneaks off and somehow does manage to get beside her brother, as Dr. Halsey explains that these two Spartans here are called Titan and Wraith, as she goes through the same explanation as the tall one is Titan and the slightly shorter one is Wraith. As Hisashi says, I don't give a rat's ass or a firecracker about those two. They look absolutely shit. It's not like they can do anything against anybody. As Deku finally lets go of Uraraka's hand and walks up to Halsey saying, can I please do something about this before he goes above and beyond. As she says, go on, as he rips off his helmet and slams it onto the ground, saying, will you shut the fuck up, father? As everybody in the room stops, as Inko Midoriya, with tears in her eyes, says, so you do know us? As Deku says, of course I bloody know you two. I never stopped thinking about you two. About you, Mother, and you, Izumi. I never stopped fucking thinking about you two having to put up the same shit from my old man. And trust me, I met a different man who actually brought me up like a goddamn son. Unlike what you did, you selfish old prick. You never gave a fuck about me. You never gave a fuck about me. All you cared about was money. So you could do your gambling and go out with your gangmates and cause trouble for the local fucking police forces. You fucking bastard. This is Deku letting everything out. All the things that his father put him through, he laid out openly. As the Urarakas were mortified of all the damage that Hisashi Midoriya put his own flesh and blood through. He just simply laughed and said, "What was a low bit runt like you supposed to do? Just because you're some souped up soldier now doesn't mean you're worth anything to me or your family." This is where Azumi steps out of the shadows and says, "You're wrong, father. You see, I may have been a toddler when I first saw him, but his eyes, hair, and face have stuck with me always. I may not have known him as a toddler, but I want to get to know him now as my brother, as my souped up pseudo brother. He may be a super soldier, and yes, he may go off one day and never return home due to him being killed in combat, but I don't give a shit about that. I'd prefer to get to know him." As even Endeavor, All Might, and all the other heroes stand up, and everybody looks at Hisashi. As even Inko walks away from him, says, "This is the best time to say this," as she removes the wedding ring and throws it to him, saying, "I always planned a divorce, and here we are, in front of all these heroes to confirm my story. You're no longer my husband." I'm just going to say Inko had the last name in Midoriya, and she says, "You can take back your other name. The Midoriyas. The Midoriyas have their own name. You never had yours." As all the heroes give her a round of applause along with Uraraka, as she removes her helmet as well, revealing that she's also the another Spartan, which catches everybody off guard, including Azumi, including her own parents, who then say, "Wait, you both were Spartans?" As she says, "Yes, Mama. Yes, Papa," which catches the Urarakas off guard and saying, So we were right, you were our daughter." As she says, "Yes. Oni gave me and Izuku Midoriya a better life. But when I first saw you guys after so long, I had him to hold me back, because he always told me that even through our training, emotions can lead to death if one day we go out to battle and we never come back. That's his way of thinking, and we both have our own way of thinking, and so do I. No matter what, emotion will always compromise a soldier, so it's best to try and get things out the way. So if you do go to combat, at least your parents will know that you died protecting them, even if you are the souped up super soldier who always lurks in the shadows of any building." When we were in the local Oni office, they made us fight fake targets, then fight each other. Me and Deku would always have a fight, and we would always beat each other up to a bloody pulp, but in the end he would be the only one standing. Yes, there were occasional times that I would stand victorious over him, but 90% of the time it was him. But that's what made us a good team. We made up for in each other's qualities that we lacked in. He lacked stealth because he always preferred the big heavy weapons. Sometimes he would go stealthy for a mission that required it, but when it's time to go loud, he would always bring his bloody big gun with several pounds of TNT along with it. And I would always go in with a sniper rifle, shotgun, and an assault rifle, or hell, even 2 pistols. We fought the insurrection several times, small bases at most, and we always had another Spartan with us. But he was another one who I also thought of as a pseudo-father. As another voice then enters the room, saying, "I thought you guys would say that." That's why I nicked an invisibility cloak in device to make sure you two were actually alright. As another Spartan appears from the back, and Dr. Halsey stands up and says, Sierra 117, what are you doing here? As he says, Dr. Catherine Halsey, I came to make sure my two adopted children that I saw as my own survived without doing anything reckless. By the looks of it, Midoriya was about to do something reckless. So I was really tempted to just to knock his father out and get him out. As everybody knows who Master Chief is, everybody sort of gives him a salute as he gives one back. Sasaki still says, I don't give a rat's ass if you're a Spartan or not. You're all trash. You'll take only one mistake from your higher-ups, and you all vanish into thin air like the garbage bags you are. As eventually, Deku pulls out a gun, and he says, You shut your mouth, old man. You're nothing to us. All you ever cared about was money, and the privilege that came with it. I don't care if you're my father. You lost that right to be a man when you started bullying me, breaking my bones all the time, and sending me to hospital. Now I could pull the trigger and rid the world of you forever, but then I'll be no good, no better than you and your worthless gang of thugs. My ma could have done a lot better than you. She deserved a lot better than you. As Hisashi then laughs and says, Yeah, look at you, you're shaking. And this is when Midoriya turns around and says, well, not Midoriya. This is where Uraraka pulls out her gun as well and says, No, we're not the ones shaking, you are. The reason why you see him as shaking is because your nerves have kicked in, saying, oh shit, I'm in trouble now. So you have one choice, Hisashi. You can either let yourself be arrested and go away and go to prison, or you can have the heroes interview you. But mark my words, they know the truth, because Deku and I are on a much higher pay grade and are much closer to a certain branch of the military that can make their lives a bit living hell. Take Endeavor for example. His own son has a scar going around his face, going across his left eye. Now we could have that easily repaired, but just to let you know, we won't make it easy for you to try and live your own life as others suffer. As then Hisashi then pulls a gun on everybody, as Izuku then fires a single shot as Hisashi falls back onto the ground, dead. As Chief says, just doesn't say anything, nor does any of the heroes. And neither does Dr. Halsey or Uraraka. Inko Midoriya doesn't say anything, nor does Azumi or the Urarakas. As All Might finally perks up, saying, That wasn't a good thing to do, young man, but I'll forgive you just this once. I'll forgive you for this, because considering you are a Spartan and he was planning to use lethal force, he was most probably going to target somebody important to you, and hide behind him like a coward. As Dr. Halsey says, all the heroes, including myself, leave. Everybody leave. We go to a different room. Principal Nezu, can we give your classroom to the Urarakas and Midoriyas to catch up on what happened to them? As Nezu says yes, they deserve a good catch up. As Chief says, I will be going with them, just so I can also give my own verdict on things. As Uraraka and Mizuku said, Chief, don't. This is something we need to say on our own terms, or on our own. We can't always rely on you. As eventually he says, fine, somebody call the police, I'll remain here, and I'll take the fall, saying that I'm the one who shot him. This is what a father would do if his kids end up pulling the trigger on someone, and it was for good reasons, and they couldn't stomach the thought of ending someone who had already had the right motivations to kill someone else, to make them look bad. I will understand if you take your time and take some time off. But as a pseudo father for both of you, I will always take the fall for you guys. If the situation requires it, I will even lay down my life for both of you. As eventually Uraraka and Deku leave and go directly to Class 1A, as no other students are there just yet. But Aizawa says I'll be there in a few minutes to start letting my class in. So you guys will have 30 minutes of family catch-up time. Or even better, we can give you the staff lounge so you guys can talk. As Uraraka and Uraraka and Nezu Midoriya both say no, we'll take Class 1A, as the Class 1A group then can start coming in. To see that all Spartans are not actually monsters, they are actually human. They are fully human. Just a lot of us have the ways of covering up emotions. As everybody starts to leave, but Chief says, Izuku, let all your emotions out this time. Yes, all your instructors told you to cover them up, but I can see inside. You're burning up. You're a ticking time bomb. It takes only one thing to push you over the edge. So don't let it control you. As eventually they all go to Class 1A and have a good discussion. Uraraka talks with her parents as they ask, how the hell did you go missing in your room 15 years ago? As Uraraka just says, you guys were knocked out by knockout gas, along with me. Then I was taken. I was taken then. But then I met Nezu Midoriya, otherwise known as Titan. We became a team, but we became so close together that even a psychiatric ward couldn't break us. Then we met other Spartan teams who were also taken at the age of 5. Noble team was created. Deku and I were meant to go and be Noble 5 and Noble 6. But then it turned out that me and him were hyper lethal vectors. So that means we could kill a lot faster and have ourselves have well be self-aware about things a lot better than our peers. There were actually four of us that were self-aware due to our hyper lethal vectors. Sierra 117, Master Chief, us, and Noble 6. A good man treated us too like we were brothers and sisters to him. Us being the youngest, Noble 6 was literally 25 already in his teenage years, and he would always come to where we were to talk to us whenever he had a day off. He kept us both going. He made me and Deku see that we were not useless. He even said that he's only second to the chief himself in his lethality. Us two were virtually on the same level, and if it came down to a full-out fist brawl with us two versus the chief, we would barely stand on top. That's how good our lethality was together. But that's when I also discovered that I had feelings for the guy. Not for Noble 6, because he was way too old for me, but for Deku. I couldn't stop thinking about him. Thinking about how he acted, how he worked. It, in the end, imprinted an image in my mind of always reaching for him. Always reaching for his level of proficiency. But my emotions constantly get in the way, and he has to act as a counterbalance to keep me on track. But the same could be said for me. His emotions don't show at all. He's almost like a machine whenever he fights. He is robotic. During one of our fights, he took two sniper rifle rounds to the chest and a shotgun blast to the back, which luckily the armor protected him against both of those things, but the sniper rifle rounds did sort of penetrate him, hitting him twice in the lungs, and the shotgun just bouncing off of him. But even when he was pouring out with blood, he still refused to stay down and heal up a bit. Eventually, I had to call in for an instruction during one of our missions, during that mission. And honestly, afterwards, I was shaking. For Spartan, we shouldn't feel emotions, but I was scared and nerve-wracking. It was so nerve-wracking, I couldn't stop shaking. Even when he was injured and should be lying down to rest, he walked over to me, grabbed hold of me. Anyway, bye guys. And I am back. Sorry guys. As you can most probably tell within that, well, in that very long bit that I was very quiet, is because my own mother was actually downstairs. And if she heard me, she would have walked up and most probably walked in to see me doing this. And all the things you've actually heard in that were actually, some of it was actually due from personal experience with my own father and that. He didn't send me to the hospital or anything, but he did hurt me in certain ways. So I hope you understand why I was actually so quiet in that. It's because I didn't want my mum to hear, and plus, the reason why I also stopped it there was because I was also getting very upset. But anyway, I hope you liked comment. Hope you like, comment, and subscribe. I will be doing another one soon. Just please forgive me for the way I was with all the swearing and that. Thank you, and see you soon.